What is good, kick and bass gang? Today we're going to do a tutorial all about drop synths, everything from choosing the right sound to processing it to incorporating it throughout the entire arrangement and automating the shit out of it. As always, if you want more kick and bass content, you can check out our producer community and sample packs in the description below, but let's hop right into it. So this is an unreleased track that I'm finishing up, and we're just going to take a listen to the second and third drop and then dive into the lead sound design.
Ménage à toi from the hotel bar, things so bizarre. Ménage à toi, things so bizarre.
Then we got the third drop sound.
Ménage à toi from the hotel bar, things so bizarre. Ménage à toi, things so bizarre.
All right, so this is the sound that we're going to be taking a look at right here. And the first thing I want to talk about is sound selection. So when I got the vocals for this track, there is a bit, if we just take a listen right here.
Ménage à toi from the hotel bar to my fancy car, things so bizarre. Feeling so bizarre, feeling so bizarre. Ménage.
So if you listen to this second part, there's like an auto pan on the vocal.
Feeling so bizarre, feeling so bizarre. Ménage.
So right away, I knew I was going to want something to kind of like play along those lines. So that's why I chose to go with like an arpeggiated sound to kind of emulate that auto pan feeling. So whenever I get vocals, I'll always kind of just like listen through and feel out the vibe of the vocal and see what kind of sound would play well with it. And then from there, I would either make it from scratch or just go through my presets and find something that works out nicely in the mix. So for the sound design itself, the sound is pretty simple. It's just like a little super short plucky sound. And there's really not much going on. I just put an envelope on the filter and then I just sifted through wavetables until I found something that kind of fit well. And then from there in the effects, we just have a multiband compressor just to glue it all together. And then some EQ, just getting rid of the lows because we don't need them. And then shelving down some of the very highs just because we want it more in the mid-range and less where the cymbals are. After that, we got the tube distortion, just with a little bit of drive. And then I like to do this trick with the sample and hold filter with the cutoff all the way up that adds like a little bit of sizzle to the top of it. So this is acting as sort of like a redux thing. And then after that, we just have a delay, and it's doing a very short ping pong delay between the left and the right ear, just to give it some stereo width. And then it's only at half dry wet, just so we have some of the middle signal, but not too much of the delay. All right, in the post-processing, we have a tonal delay, which is just triggered on later in the track, so we'll go over that in a little bit. Then we have a saturator with 7 dB of drive, just to make it as loud as possible. And then again, ducking out any highs that we don't need, just because we'll have the cymbals in this sort of range, so it's just a quick little mixing thing. After that, we have ozone 11. So the stabilizer in here just ducks out some of the like resonant frequencies. It like stabilizes it. So it just gets rid of anything that it thinks is too resonancy. Then we have this exciter. So this is just giving it like more mid-range. And what I kind of do here is I just split this into two different bands and then just listen to these different distortion settings in here for what's sounding good, and then just kind of mix it into taste. So without it, you could hear it like gives it more mid-range and kind of some crispiness. Then after that, we have clarity, and this just gives it exactly what it says. They did a good job in naming this. So it just boosts the high range to where it comes through in the mix. So it's just a smart plugin. I'm just trusting it and whatever sounds good. After that, we have the bit warmer, which is a saturator preset. And then all I did was drag down the dry wet. So without this, it's just giving it more weight. Then again, just low cutting it just to get rid of anything we don't need. And then I'm using a saturator on soft clip and no drive just to make sure it's not coming out of the track clipping. And finally, we have the channel strip. This is the same as the kick and bass channel strip, just for arrangement stuff. And then we have the LFO tool for the sidechain, which I toggle on throughout the drop. All right, so next up, we got the automation. So the main thing that's going on in this sound is the arpeggiator free rate. And as you can see, so it's just going from super fast to slower throughout the fake out in the first part of the drop. And when you're dialing in stuff like that, it's all kind of just feeling. It's not like I typed in the numbers here to figure out exactly what was going to fit. So I was just like dragging these around until I got something that worked. And then this part, as soon as it felt right, I just copied over here to the second part. Next up, we have the reverb throw. So we have this little note that goes into the repeating phrase, and the reverb throw just fills in the space before we repeat the phrase right here. After that, we have the side chain turning on when the kick drum comes in, just to give it the bounce. And then again, we have this little blip of it that plays along with the vocal. So if we listen. Then we have at the end, this little slowing down part, just to drag you into the next part of the drop. And the last major note on this part is the pitch bend inside a serum goes down an octave. And this is, again, just dragging you into the next phrase of the drop. So it's, and then we just did a little bit of variation with the free rate, just whatever was sounding right. The last thing we have for automation is this crazy effect that happens on the second drop.
Hotel bar things so bizarre.
So right here, I just flipped on a tonal delay, and this is kind of just acting like a flanger. So if we just mess around with the timing right here. So that's a super wild effect, but I just wanted to have, so all the timing and stuff is exactly the same, but it's just this like weird effect that goes on just to have like a little bit of a difference in the second drop. And if you want to set up this tonal delay yourself, it's just a delay, and then the minimum and maximum set up on the time just goes from 1 to 45. And then I just mapped the feedback and the dry wet on here. Or if you have the kick and bass pack, it's in there as well. All right, so the last thing I want to go over is sort of the arrangement of the sound throughout the track and some of the other songwriting behind it. So if we listen to the intro right here. There's this little vocal pad that goes on in the effects group. And it also has that sort of like LFO arpeggiator feeling. And I did that with just LFO tool on a 16th rate. So I try to do as many things as possible throughout the track that'll get you ready to hear that sound on the drop. So the first one would be this. And then if we listen to the verse here, we have just a little bit of the sound that happens on 27 right here that just like teases it before you hear it on the drop. So if we listen. So that's just a quick little blip of it, just so you're ready for it on the drop. Also, if we listen to the pre-drop, there's an effect that I did on the vocal that leads into the drop synth. So if we listen to the vocal here. So we have this little bit right here. So if we look at the auto pan on the vocal right here, this is leading the vocal into the lead sound in the drop. So the main point here is just trying to incorporate the main element of your song into like separate instruments or like using similar effects just so it all feels cohesive together. All right, guys, that's going to do it for Drop Synths. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and drop a comment if you got some ideas for videos you guys want me to go over. Peace.